All right. Good morning, Myco Wizards of the world. Thanks for being here. If you've followed me through this entire crazy Marc R. Keith story, we've arrived at the third installment of this kind of adventure we've been on to really get to know somebody who most of us only know through his videos, his attendance on the shroomery, and truly his killer anecdotal ways in which he can explain very complicated subjects to amateur mycologists all around the world. If you are somebody who's just getting into the mushroom game and you're like, I don't know who the fuck Roger Rabbit is, why the fuck do I care? Who's Marc R. Keith? What you don't realize is everybody you're getting information from or learning it from got it from him. And if they didn't get it from him, they got it from somebody who got it from him. Marc played such a pivotal role in the emergence of cultivators around the globe through shroomery.org. And 7 years ago, his property was seized from him via forged documents, a trespassing gaggle of crazy fucking people in eastern Washington. And their primary motive was to get him off of his land, and they wanted the property for themselves. And I didn't find it hard to believe when I first met Marc a couple of years ago, but I think that through enough due diligence of my own and my whole crew that work on these videos and bring them to you, we were able to really look through all these details and realize, like, Marc is so far from somebody who's full of shit. He tells tales that are so tall, but they're not fake and they're not unreal. They're complicated and they're full of very emotionally charged history. So when it comes down to Marc R. Keith versus Ferry County, which is the whole court-ordered craziness here, I asked Marc to put a very succinct thing together. And this is something that he already had sent out to a bunch of places, including FBI field boxes, FBI field offices, along with a bunch of other newscasters and so on and so forth. But one person sending a handful of letters doesn't do a hell of a lot for such a complicated history. And I think through his sort of trying to fix it himself mentality, it kind of muddied the waters. And when I met him, I didn't know anything about this, but this is what he primarily wanted to talk about, which is the first episode I ever released with him. OP Fungi Festival that we released a month back or so. We just kept it light and talked about mushroom cultivation. This episode and this interview that you're going to see with Marc and myself was recorded out in Washington State just this past summer. And he calls out everybody verbatim in name that fucked him over and that seized his land from him, altered documents. This case is a large case. It's not a small case, and it's a complicated one, and it's why I think most people don't want to look at it, and they just are like, let this fucking dope smoking, mushroom growing hippie die somewhere, and let's just move on with life. Marc doesn't lay down, man. He really doesn't. He's as tough as any other mycologist out there, if not more. So he put together this. It's a complaint request for federal investigation. He's requesting, and I'm requesting, some help in getting his case acknowledged, as it was shot down by the Supreme Court, which allegedly is as high as you can go. But as we all know, the more noise you make, the more you stand a chance at actually getting some sort of, feet and groundwork into something that is just seemingly hopeless. So the request is to send this right here, which is a 9-page document outlining the entire sort of history and complaint issues with everything that has happened in the seizure of his property, as well as a small note from whoever you are. And keep it kind, keep it courteous, keep it short, and mail that letter along with this to the FBI field office in Seattle, the Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson, VA Inspector General Hotline, and the Washington State Office of the Insurance Commissioner. if everybody who has benefited or bought a DVD from Marc or even like remotely learned something about mycology and heard the name RR echo in their head or wrote a letter, this dude would get his fucking property back. This is the property where his wife died. You know, this is the property that he had to give up. If you've seen any of the mushroom cultivation videos, the Let's Grow Mushroom series, that's where it was filmed. It was all filmed on the land that was stolen from him. So, you know, if there's anything I can say, it's really just like, help this dude out and send a fucking letter. You'll be able to find this 9-page sheet for easy like PDF printing right on the Myco Wizards website that is linked in the description of this audio podcast or video podcast or however you're getting this. Follow that link, print this out, and then send 4 letters off. Snail mail is fucking insane. And if we can get 1,000 fucking letters sent to these people, it'll make a mark. It'll make noise, and it will truly, you know, say something and hopefully help Marc in the end, who has helped countless and countless amounts of people grow mushrooms with his amazing sort of obsessive, compulsive, crazy endeavors from, you know, 1970 on until now. So help him out, and let's see what we can do with this. Lastly, just want to say this episode is dedicated to Alex of Catawba Mushrooms. Alex is probably the only reason that Marc was like, okay, I'll let you in the door, because let's be honest, I didn't track him down that easily. He let me track him down. And I think he saw some sort of camaraderie in the sense that he could get this out to somebody who could get it out to an audience. So let's help the motherfucker out. All right, thank you, and good night.
My boots have to come off before I get in the car usually, because I come down off the mountain from hiking.
Yeah.
And I open the sliding door on the van, the dog jumps in, and I can sit there and take my shoes off, you know, and nurse my wounded piggies.
Yeah, man. That was the one thing, like, hiking that mountain today. Oh, maybe that's what we should talk about first, because that was fucking epic. Like, just the entire, I know, like, I had a vision of what these trails and things look like, because you sent me that one photo from the fucking fire tower. But that was insane, man. And how many times have you done that particular one?
That particular one, last 2 weeks ago was the first time.
That was the first time?
Yeah, I've hiked a lot of the others, but that was my first time on that one.
That one, yeah. And was it that busy when you went up there?
Not nearly as busy as today.
Dude.
But still, when I got back, the motorcycle parking area was completely full.
Yeah.
And there's a second motorcycle parking area we passed on the way out, and it didn't have any bikes in it.
Right.
There was only one bike there. And when I was there last time, it wasn't as crowded. Although when we got back, the parking lot was full. People were trolling for a spot, just like today. But there was no bikes. And last time there was probably 20 bikes. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, it's like it's pretty awesome to like see that many people ride however far they have, and then climb a fucking mountain. Man, these fucking trees. I think that's the thing that got me while we were riding, like from wherever, from the mountain to here, was just the size of the trees. They kept catching me, and I was like, motherfucker, like the size of a building.
These are the size trees that would be second growth if they were on the Olympic Peninsula, but I'm pretty sure they're old growth.
They're old growth?
The way to tell is you look around for stumps.
Yeah.
If you find stumps, you know it's been logged. You'll find some 5 feet in diameter stumps.
Damn, man, that's fucking insane. Yeah, that's a bit, I don't know. We don't have anything like this on the East Coast. It's always like a challenge to find old, nice woods to go hunting in. We got skinny pine trees, man. That's what we got. But
yeah, they're young. A lot of that was farmland that I think New England has let go back to.
Yeah.
The farmers moved out. They didn't plant trees. They just move in.
Yeah. Yeah, the only people who are making money at farming right now are people who are like integrating a lot of different crops. They have a fucking farm stand that serves pizza. They have to do everything in order to just farm on the side, you know? It's a fucking struggle. Because you see all the major farms like around the country, whether it be cattle or whether it be crops, and like they're still not making any money, but they have to have like 8 million fucking acres to do anything. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like,
yeah, that benefits the foreign investors and the corporations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But see, it's because we have a centralized distribution system in this country. And when you've got that, it's out of their way to go pick up 200 gallons of milk from Farmer Joe's dairy.
Right.
He would rather pick up 100,000 gallons of milk over here and get it into the stream. And so that leaves it to the small farmer to have to haul it to wherever the distributor is.
Yeah.
And why people run into that with mushrooms too. And if the distributor is farther away than what you can make, you know, you take your expenses of gas and everything else. If you got to drive your shit so far to sell it, you're not going to make any money.
No, you're not. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that the small distribution networks that exist within like mushroom farms are even more diverse now because of that. So you have a lot of like companies that are like mushroom companies coming together and just starting to like come up with cooperative buying systems as well as distribution systems, because there's no other way to do it, you know.
Well, and the mushroom people can vertically integrate. When Washington legalized cannabis, they didn't allow that, and so
for mushrooms,
for pot,
yeah.
If you had a grower and a processor, you could grow it and you could jar it up, but you couldn't have a factory store. You couldn't have a store at your facility that people could buy just your product from. And we all were trying to get it, you know. Okay, we have retail stores, we get it, but let the grower sell just his product at a stand. No, you can't have that, because they want it all on camera and they check your IDs twice. And, you know, at some point that may slack off a little bit.
I fucking hope so.
Well, you know, I get ID'd at the liquor store sometimes.
Do you really?
Yeah. And I just have to laugh. I go, oh, are you serious? And she goes, it's because, look right here. Like every 40th customer, it flashes mandatory ID.
You're just lucky number 40 every time?
I happen to be, well, not every time. Sometimes, you know, they figure these gray hairs and wrinkles count for something. But other times...
they're like, they could be spray-on.
Yeah, this guy might not be really old.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
But
I like you're letting the gray go. I think the last time I was here,
I was putting some of that just for men shit in it, and man, I used that stuff and I got an itch, and I thought, well, that's funny. And what was even funnier is what happened is it was itching, and I thought, you know what? I just got done petting my dog, and we had them down south, and they got some fleas.
Right.
And that we brought back from Oklahoma, and I had sprayed him good, but he's scratching and shit. And so I sprayed him down with that stuff, and he got better almost instantly.
No
and then
shit.
the next day I was itching, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together that it was the stupid hair dye. I thought it must be I got some of his fleas, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see him jumping, but it was itching like it was fleas.
Right.
So I got that stuff for my dog, that flea and tick spray, and I just closed my eyes and douched my beard with it.
Didn't.
I did. And it got better. It literally got better.
Did it really?
And it quit itching.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think twice about it. And then, a month or 2 later, I got the gray and I'm looking old again. And so brushed some of that shit into my beard, and man, I was so miserable. I broke out in hives. I had never had hives. I'd never been allergic to anything.
Yeah.
And so I woke up scratching. I was dreaming that I was in a bee. We used to raise bees.
Right.
And I used to work without a suit and stuff because I was real calm. I'd wear white shirts.
Yeah.
And I just wore a white hairnet because they're attracted like anything else to dark colors.
Yeah.
And I'd work it just moving real slow. But I was dreaming that something had happened and my bees were just biting me all over my face. It was like a nightmare. And then I woke up and I'm scratching my face and my hands are soaking wet, my pillow's soaking wet.
Yeah.
So I thought, man, I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding all over everything.
Yeah.
So I got up and ran into the bathroom, there's no blood. It was wet, it was that yellow, nasty stuff that secretes when you get the hives from something.
Right.
And that's what it was.
Your body's just rejecting
Oh,
the fucking...
well, I was so miserable.
Yeah.
I had already tried washing it out a couple of times, even before it got that bad. I'd spent a few days, I shampooed it over and over and over again trying to get that stuff out. It wouldn't come out.
Yep.
But when I got up and it was all wet and I was in a panic, it hurt so bad or itched so bad, I just got out my clippers and took the whole beard off.
Took it all off.
And I got some more dog medicine. My dogs had some cream for their paws that had hydrocortisone, so I lathered that up. That's what I had. I was like, I'm a dog too. Fuck.
I mean, it's all the same, right?
Yeah, it's the same
just like-
medicine.
yeah,
It's probably comes down the same line. One's
all comes from
labeled
Mexico.
veterinary.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it cleared it up.
That's good.
And
You can't not find fleas and assume you have fleas at one point or another when you have dogs. Because I swear to God, multiple times I've been like, fuck.
except that we don't have fleas in Seattle.
You don't?
No, I've never seen a flea or a tick in Seattle. They've got ticks in eastern Washington.
Okay.
But my dogs ran outside in the woods for years, and we'd come back and there would be 3 ticks on them.
Yeah.
Maybe, We would go out in Oklahoma and come back, and there'd be hundreds.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, they'd be all over. The dog would just be suffering from them.
Jesus.
And when I lived down there, I had to mix that stuff up for dip.
Right.
And the Roddy I had, I'd dip her, and every one of them would die and fall off.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, she's just covered with thumb-sized ticks already fully, and that'll make them anemic because it's sucking all their blood out and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, she's getting her blood sucked out, but how many times can I pour this toxic skull and crossbones shit over my dog before she gets skin cancer or whatever?
Yeah, for sure.
But you're picking the lesser of two evils. Like, I couldn't let her sit there and suffer.
Yeah,
And you can't
tough,
pull them
dude.
off. You can't pull 1,000 ticks off a dog.
Fuck
you got to
no,
do
they'll
something with
bleed out or something, man. Yeah, no.
Well, you just can't. It'd take weeks.
Yeah, it would just, it'd be terrible.
And it
for
would
the
hurt them. It'd be
dog.
like trying to pull porcupine quills out,
Yeah.
which I've also tried. Maggie,
Nope.
she's the one that gets in trouble every single time. But
She's the adventurous type.
she is, and she decided, man, that little baby porcupine looks really tasty.
Did she actually get in, in a
fuck,
fight?
she
of
had
course.
like 300 quills. They were little short, like sewing needle size.
Oh, Jesus.
She went up and bit it, and they were in her nose, they were in her mouth, in her tongue. One had gone through her tongue and up into the roof of her mouth.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
Oh, it was awful. She nearly died because her sinuses started swelling up.
Yeah.
And I tried to pull them off in the field right after it happened. I had my Leatherman tools, and I got probably 50 out. But she still had a couple hundred, and it was really hurting her. And I realized I got to go home, get my brother to help hold her.
Yeah.
And we got maybe another 50 out, and then she just wouldn't let me come at her. She's like, Dad, I'll die, but you're not pulling another one out. It hurts too bad. And all the ones in her tongue and lips, and they were all still there.
Oh, that fucking sucks.
And then it was in the middle of COVID, and none of the vets wanted to accept new patients.
Right.
So we had to drive from Syracuse all the way up on the St. Lawrence River. That's the border with Canada.
Whoa.
To find a vet that didn't know us, that was hungry enough to accept a new patient.
It was really
small
bad,
town. We had to drive to a
man.
really small town vet that was, like, yeah, I need work. Come on, bring your dog up.
That's because everybody got a dog during COVID. They were all like, bummed out, and they just, I don't know. There was an influx of dogs, I guess, which is hilarious if you've had your dog the whole fucking time.
I've had my dog, she was 7 years old or something at that time.
Yeah.
That was shitty. People getting dogs at COVID and then dumping them as soon as they went back to work. That's, and
I hold it against so many people who did that shit.
I hold it
like,
against
what
people
the
who
fuck?
talk about dog ownership.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that term.
Yeah.
It's, you can't own an animal.
No, they're your fucking family, man.
Yeah. I mean, it should be. But people that dump their dogs,
oh, they just see them as
or
property.
whatever, they see them as property.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little
And the law
unnerving.
will see it as property. If somebody shoots your dog, the most you can get from them if you go to court is the value of buying a new dog. It's just property.
Dude. The thing that always sticks out in my head is the day Frankie died. There's somebody who knocks on the door and people are coming and going, hospice, friends, family, the whole 9 yards. And she's like breathing, like taking the death rattle like hardcore. And this fucking cop knocks on the door and goes, does Edna Krabappel live here? And I just looked at him and I was like, are you fucking serious right now? It's my dog. I don't even know how they got the fucking dog's name, but I've never registered my dog. So I just fucking slammed the door on the cop. I was like, fuck you, man. I'm going to go watch my wife die now. But they'll come to your fucking door and they'll just like totally like be involved in your whole like living space. And you're like, get the fuck out of here. Like what? I don't know. It's unreal, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the cops in Ferry County told the neighbors they can shoot through the fence and kill my dog inside the fence if they feel threatened. And you can't ever charge him, because how can I prove in court that he didn't feel threatened?
Right.
But the dog's behind the fence. They've never bit a single person ever. No. It was just a lie. It was the people who were stealing my property.
Right.
But they probably called in 24 vicious dog reports to the sheriff. Yeah. And the sheriff would always come out. And the sheriff would come out and my dogs would wag their tails and walk up to the fence and stuff.
Out. Yeah.
And I assumed they were putting that in their reports. Most of them would check temperament. There was a few assholes, but most of them would say, hey, guy, and they'd reach over and pet them.
Yeah.
Reach over the fence, pet them, and the dogs, they'd be fine.
How many cops are in Ferry County?
Not very many now.
No.
The fuckers all quit because they don't pay them enough.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're down to just a couple.
Okay.
I think the last I heard, Republic Police had like one officer.
Okay.
And the sheriff's office was down to just 2 or 3 deputies.
Jesus. Wow.
It's probably for the better.
Yeah, well.
Considering them, the way they operate. But.
Or it just lets a whole town like that do whatever it wants. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But that's a hard thing when you get into the middle of nowhere. Maine, there's no police past a certain point. It's all just like the, what do they call those guys? The game warden. Just game wardens everywhere, And I think that the game warden only has so much authority over like such a mass spread out population that they're just like trying to control people by chasing them down in 4x4s, And it's like their job is
so that'd be a wife
different.
Beater's dream.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Or just any criminal in general's dream, It's like, great, I can get away with whatever I want, whenever I want. So Maine is not in short supply of like chaotic situations like that. And it's the closer you get to
But does the law get involved in favor of the criminals? That's the thing.
Right.
And that's what happens in Eastern Washington. They dismissed the case when I filed a lawsuit to get my land back. They dismissed it without a trial.
Yeah.
And it's because the county prosecutor got the county tax assessor to write a sworn affidavit lying under oath that I never paid taxes on that property. And they did that while they made that parcel disappear. They wiped that tax parcel off the records. It's no longer there. I've got receipts for paying taxes, but you go down to the tax office and say, you pull up these records, I tell you that parcel doesn't exist. We don't have anything. And they didn't just make it go away, they made it go away. They don't even have the previous records. Then, because they control the records, then the tax assessor just flat out lied under oath. Knowing she could get away with it because they'd already deleted the records. But I got the paper records, but they denied me an opportunity to go to court and prove it. Okay, that's what the whole 7 years of litigation has been. Did they properly deny me a trial? But they won't ever consider the evidence. It's just the procedural of what lawyer filed. And I had lawyers back then, 4 of them. You know, they got 6 figures in attorney fees and never got me a trial. Now, how does that happen if they're not involved in it too? You know, Natalia's convinced that at least 2 or 3 of the lawyers were actually, I don't know what you'd say, soft, just they allowed them to do what they did.
Yeah, well, because it's up to very few people, like a judge or a lawyer, to come up with any conclusive sort of basis for any case whatsoever, right? So you're putting this whole thing, anybody's thing, into the hands of individuals who are very easily corrupted by like a very like strange and amorphous culture. Yeah,
but here's the strange and amorphous culture. The lawyers there mostly do DUIs, assault and batteries, wife beaters, right? And so the lawyers do that kind of work. Well, now there's a property case. So my suspicion is that, one, they didn't know shit about property law.
Probably not.
But nor did the county, because what they put stuff in that was directly contrary to state law. But imagine a case where your best friend got a DUI and you're trying to get him off. And this is imaginary because I don't know that it happened. Okay. But suppose now the prosecutor says, well, you know what? You lay down on this Marc Keith deal and let us get a dismissal, and your buddy walks. Or some combination of buddies.
No, it's a simple thing that happens all the time, I'm sure, you know.
But see, a guy, you know, the Constitution says no person may be deprived of property without due process of law. Life, liberty, or property. That's the Constitution. And what I found out in Washington State, especially Eastern Washington, the Constitution is optional. By law, the Constitution is optional because judges, if a judge decides contrary to the law, there's no repercussion. The worst thing that can possibly happen is a higher court will overturn it. But they don't get sanctioned, they don't get fined, they don't do anything. So they can write an opinion that directly contradicts state law, and they get away with it by making it unpublished. It doesn't go in the register, it's an unpublished, so we can say to hell with the law, to hell with the Constitution.
Civil versus like a federal offense.
This is all civil and local, not federal. Other than it's a violation of the Constitution. You know, so my option right now, if I wanted to continue in court, is to go to federal court. Because I never got a trial. There was no due process. But if they cheated in Washington courts, they're going to cheat in the federal court too.
Of course.
And let's take a best case scenario. Worst case is the federal court would just dismiss it, okay? Because they're going to ask for that. Best case scenario is the federal court would send it back to Ferry County and say, you got to give this guy a trial. Well, I'm never going to get a fair trial there.
It's not fair.
It's not going to happen. And so they would just cheat again, dismiss it again. The Court of Appeals would simply affirm the dismissal and make it an unpublished opinion, and the Supreme Court would say, we're not going to look at it. Review denied. That's 2 words. Review denied. Okay, so that's what happens. It means the constitutional is optional. It works when they want it to work, but not when you want it to do. Because every brief I ever wrote brought up the 5th and 14th Amendments.
Yeah.
You know, and Article 3, Section 16 of the Washington State Constitution.
Yeah.
It says no person may be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
Right.
Same wording as the 5th Amendment.
Yeah.
So it's the state constitution, the state law, and that. So they just flat out ignored it because they wanted to.
So they just like basically extracted the Constitution from it, and they just chose to go
we're
through the channels.
not going to apply it in this case. And in fact, I think it's Brown, Associate Chief Justice Brown, the Court of Appeals, wrote the opinion.
Yeah.
And he said, we have exercised our discretion not to consider those issues.
Right.
And that's the Constitution, one of them. The fact that I had a deed to the property and they didn't.
Right.
Okay. County roads have to have a deed. Any county road in Washington has a deed to it. The county has a deed to that. It's a right-of-way deed.
Right.
They don't have one. You know, nothing. It was not a road, and the property leading to it was not a road.
Yeah.
And it's even in the paperwork for the plat that if they ever want a county road, they'll have to bring it to standards and the adjacent property. Well, the adjacent property is Boise Cascade.
Yeah.
And it's just a little 2-track through the woods.
Yeah.
It's no different from where we're sitting right now.
Right.
And then it comes into my property.
I think about this all the time. Like, look, we just parked a vehicle and set up cameras near a private road entrance. The paranoia sets in, like right now, where you're like, what's going to happen? You know, can people come and just like, you know, get angry at us? Do we leave real quick? Is there a fight? It's always this back and forth with property in situations. And then if you get law involved that is completely corrupt, in your case in particular, you have to walk away from it, like you've expressed and like you've kind of acknowledged at this point.
I don't think it's a systemic problem nationwide. It's definitely systemic in Eastern Washington.
Yeah. Yep. Which I wonder how many other people it's happened to there. I
know of at least one.
At least one?
At least one I know had her property taken, and she had her taxes current and everything. I don't know her whole story, so I can't get in it.
Yeah.
And certainly won't name her.
No, for sure not.
But yeah, she lost 40 acres to them.
Wow.
She had 80 and they took 40. You know, and the first thing that happens when you try to get a lawyer for something like this is they say, okay, you have a reasonable chance of success. I need a $50,000 retainer.
Right.
Okay, now how many people have $50,000 in the bank? You know, so you got to pay them $50,000.
Right.
Then you pay them $300 an hour for everything they do. It doesn't come out of that $50,000.
Yeah.
They keep that $50,000 as insurance.
Yeah.
And then keep billing you as time goes on.
Yeah.
You know, and most people can't do it.
No.
You know, I had a business. I was fighting for my business, cleaned out my savings, cleaned out what we had.
Yeah.
And spent it on lawyers, and they go, okay, well, your case got dismissed, go away.
Yeah.
So I had to file my own stuff. I couldn't afford them anymore after that.
Right.
So I wrote my own briefs. I got a book on brief reading, or several books on brief readings, and then you can go to a lot of the court's websites and pull up cases, and you can read the briefings that the lawyers wrote.
Yeah.
So I saw those, and I got a familiarization with how to write them.
Yep.
It was obvious I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't trying to pretend to be one. I was trying to put the story before the court.
Right.
But the court knew the story.
Yeah.
They knew the story. They knew what had happened. And they also knew that they were going to let them keep my property.
Right. Well, you became like a figment of their like nightmarish whatever. Like you explained the situation of going into town hall and them not realizing even who you were. Right. So like you're this mythical like scapegoat in this manner.
Yeah.
And if you appear there, it just is not good.
It's slander too. And you know, I was going to avoid saying this, but the only 2 times I've ever lost property, it was Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
And I don't know, I'm not attacking the organization, you know, if they even have an organization. It may be individual congregations or separate, I don't know.
Yeah.
But back in the 1970s, I had a guy try to steal my property. I bought it on an owner financed and always paid it, but he found out I was getting a divorce. He didn't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
So he set up a fraud and a scam to try to take my property.
Yeah.
And I went to court in Dallas, Texas, and the judge looked at what was going on and goes, You know, that ain't gonna happen. So I kept my property.
Yeah.
It happened again. The only 2 times I've ever had it taken.
Yeah.
And I was nervous. I even told Vivian when we found out that it was Jehovah's Witnesses that had divided up that neighborhood. I said, I hope these people are better than the others, you know? And we thought they were. Vivian died thinking they were honest people. I remember her saying that Jim and Kathy Woodsky are some of the nicest Christians we've ever met. They don't, you know, they come to our door with Watchtower and want to talk about it and all, but they don't push.
Yeah.
And she liked them, and they seemed to live a decent life. Okay, so we had no idea, and then she died, and then right after she died, that's when he took my property, and he literally copied a signature of a planning director from one document, made a different document. He took the original and cut and pasted different things and put his own little short plat together and then labeled it as the original and then cut and pasted the signature of the administrator. Okay, so I got a certified document examiner in Washington. Cost a bunch of money, but whenever you have a forgery or something and you're going to go to court, the court expects a certified examiner to say, they don't want you to say it's a forgery. I want a certified examiner.
They
so
need
I got
a third
one.
party, right.
And I had that report. The thing is, they just didn't care.
Right.
They just didn't care. There's way more Jehovah's Witnesses in Ferry County than me, you know? And he made a big spectacle that I shouldn't be allowed to live there because it's a pot farm and he's, you know, got a pot farm. This is the Jehovah's Witness telling them that. It's illegal for him to be there. That's a pot farm, as he was putting his house into closing to a competitor of mine, another pot farm, which is not in the record anywhere. I only found out later when the guy moved in. As I was getting ready to move out, he goes, oh, by the way, we're in the same business.
Did he have any idea?
He didn't know. No, I don't think the other grower had any concept. He seemed like a decent guy.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure he is. I don't think he had anything to do with it. But the Woodskys had had their property for sale for 5 years and couldn't get a buyer because everybody needed a mortgage.
Right.
And they had built a big, nice 2-story house.
Yeah.
And I think it was like $260,000 or something like that. And most people need a mortgage for that. Well, nobody could get a mortgage because there's no county road access.
Right.
So that's when he altered the documents and took it to the county commissioners and said, I need a resolution that this is a county road.
Right.
And he went a couple of times. The first time, they had the county engineer and the county public works director there. And I know they told them it is not county road.
Right.
But they didn't put it in the record. And I have an email we got through Discovery where Jim Woodsky emailed him and said, be very careful for liability reasons regarding statements made by the public works director regarding your meeting minutes. It's right in an email.
Yeah.
He told them, be warned about it. And when the meeting minutes came out, there's no mention of the county public works director. And I talked to him later, after that, several weeks later, and he goes, I told him that's not county road.
Yeah.
Nor is Boise Cascade County road, see? They just frickin' stole it, okay? That's what happened. And that enabled him to sell his house, and the guy got a Veterans Administration mortgage, fraudulently.
Why do you
Nobody's interested. Nobody is interested in this. And they all know what happened, but they're all in on it. And so I've never seen in my entire life, I've seen a lot of dirty stuff, but usually when you think of dirty city hall, you think the mayor's son got a ticket and they fixed it for him, right?
Right.
That's the corruption you see.
It's Jack Nicholson and Easy Rider, right? It's like,
well, not even that much, you know.
Yeah.
That was a good movie, though.
Yeah, it was.
But, so anyway, they took the property and we filed suit against them because the way it works, when you file a lawsuit in the state of Washington to quiet title, like let's say you and I have a dispute and I say your shed is on my property.
Sure.
Okay, and we go out and we get a surveyor and he looks at it and finds out, your shed's on the property and all of that. there's a procedure that you've got to follow,
Yeah.
okay, to do it. It's a property thing. And usually, like if it was an expensive shed, the court might just say, move the property line over and you pay him.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know, they'll
Whatever's
work out something because,
simplest, right,
or they might say tear down the shed and move it, you know,
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah.
But there's still going to be a procedure and they're going to make an attempt to follow the law.
Yeah.
All right. When it comes to establishing a county road in the state of Washington, you first submit a plat that shows the road.
Yeah.
All right. And then when the appropriate authority is what the code says, when the appropriate authority, which is the county commissioners, approve it,
Yep.
it becomes a county road. And then it gets deeded and all of that formalities after that.
Yeah.
This never happened. The
Right.
county commissioners never approved a road, and they never made a road. And the law also says the county engineer keeps all the records of the road. And the county engineer has no record of a road across my property. Okay,
Right.
so they knew at a trial I would prove that it was not a county road.
Yep.
And the county was, when we filed that suit, the county then had 30 days, and the law says they had to make and stake their claim or title or interest in the property being sought or lose the right to do so later.
Right.
They made no defense of what they did at all. They just, and the only thing they did do is the prosecutor admitted that I paid taxes on the road. She said,
That's
he
all they
pays
said.
taxes on parcel 300 and parcel 301. That's my house and road parcel. And she admitted it.
Right.
And then later got the county assessor to deny it. Okay, now the Code of Washington says if we have a dispute and I sue you, you've got to state in writing what's your grounds for holding that piece of property.
Right.
You can't wait until trial and then come up with a surprise.
Yeah.
And what Ferry County did is exactly that. They made no defense of it. They didn't claim they had a deed.
Yeah.
They admitted I paid taxes. They admitted it had never been accepted as a county road by not, we put that right in our suit and they just ignored it. And
Yeah.
if I accuse you of something in court and you stay silent, which is your right, it's essentially an admission.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't respond to an accusation
It's
in a
an
brief,
assumption,
it's
for sure.
considered that you've conceded the subject.
Right.
So Ferry County made no defense and then filed a motion for dismissal. Said file a motion just to dismiss it, and they put in like 200 pages of affidavits and all kinds of stuff that had nothing to do with the ownership of the property, but it was
just
those
a
people
name.
who lived beyond me that wanted a shortcut to their property. They got in with the Jehovah's Witnesses, Mennonites.
Yeah.
They got in with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they had no right to be on my property at all.
Right.
And they talked about my vicious dogs and all, all this stuff that has nothing to do.
Just the Hollywood flair. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did this without any notice, and 30 days later, the judge just dismissed my lawsuit based on that. And that was unlawful for him to even allow those things
Right.
to be done, to put in. Now, those affidavits, and this is where I talk about dirty lawyers, those affidavits by the assessor saying I never paid taxes, my own lawyer didn't let me see that.
Yeah.
He just hid it from me. I didn't even know that they had said that. And then the court dismisses my case. And I'm like, well, how on earth can they dismiss it? Then I find out that the county assessor had committed first-degree perjury. That's a felony.
Yeah.
But my case was already dismissed.
Right.
So when we go to the Court of Appeals, they essentially said, well, you should have said all this before. But I didn't have a chance to say it before.
You never got your day in court.
No, I never
There's
got my
nothing.
day in court, and then the Supreme Court declined to review.
Right.
Now, how dirty is that? Okay, we have a constitution. I used to carry a pocket constitution all the time.
Right.
Everywhere. I think it's the ACLU makes them. But
Yeah.
I always had it. And the other day, it's right in my top drawer.
Yep.
And I was so tempted to write on it. The contents of this book are entirely optional,
It's all subject to
Yeah,
change.
but I didn't. I'm not going to. I still honor the Constitution. It's just that in Eastern Washington, it's not honored.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, the Supreme Court, which is on this side of the state, where they tend to have better sense and at least a sense of rule of law,
Oh, yeah.
I expected the Supreme Court to impose rule of law on Ferry County, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Instead, they denied review, which means it's over. I don't own the property. And how do I sell when my deed says I have a certain acreage and I really am only transferring half that amount?
Well, it'd be so impossible to sell without disclosing all of that, because the question is going to come up immediately whether somebody has to finance it or not. So it's just going to become a stalemate.
Well, but there's
like
a county
time.
commissioner resolution that it is county road.
Right.
And I've already lost in court. So
Yeah.
unless some court somewhere grows an integrity bone, I just have to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And sell the house for what I can get, which isn't much, but I'm going to get what I can.
Yeah.
But before I can do that, I got to drill a new well. Where they made the county road was right on top of my water well.
Yeah.
And in the state of Washington, water wells have to be approved on a plat by the health department.
Right.
And the health department signed my plat. But that fake plat that the Jehovah's Witnesses gave to the county had her signature photoshopped off.
Right.
I mean, it's just corruption. And you know, these guys, we'd sit for hours drinking ice water, and he'd be showing me the Watchtower magazine and telling me all about how they don't vote and they don't participate in government. You know, we don't go to meetings. And
when his name's all over
when I looked it up, well, when I looked up online, I think they get conscientious objector status or something. I may not have in the military. I may not have all of it exactly right, but he made a point of telling me that they just don't use the government.
Right.
And this guy followed his faith. His own son was doing tricks on his bicycle, went off the porch and broke his neck.
Jesus.
And needed a blood transfusion.
Okay.
They wouldn't let him have it. They don't believe in blood transfusions. And so he told the hospital, do what you can do to save him, but you can't give him blood from somebody else.
What?
Yeah, because that's part of their, I don't pretend to know how people come up with what they believe in. Every church has its own little set of dogma, but their dogma is you don't do blood transfusions. So for his faith, he's ready to let his kid die.
Whoa.
The boy lived, fortunately, but
good.
5 years later, the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not bear false witness. I mean, he did all those things.
Yeah.
Because it was over money.
Yeah.
He'll let his own kid die for his church, but he'll burn his church to steal property so he can go. He moved to Billings, Montana.
Jesus.
And I'm sure they belong to the Kingdom Hall there, and they're probably knocking on doors, passing out Watchtower magazines. So if you're in Billings, hide your belongings. You know, don't answer the door.
Right.
I'll never talk to another one.
No, it's crazy. I have a couple actually really close friends who grew up Jovi, and watching them tear away from that. One was in Oregon and the other was in Maine. And watching them try to change their lives from that is like the most, it's just chaos. It
tears you up. I grew up in the Church of Christ. It's the same way.
But it's for some reason, I don't know why Jehovah's Witnesses are just like, not to go just slandering them in particular, but they are, from my experience, they're caught in this window of like arbitrary rules for no fucking reason. And they just love fucking with their own family. It seems like that's what I've experienced firsthand and been like, what is happening? You know, it's so
a lot
strange.
of that mirrors what's going on in the country. You know?
Right?
Families don't mean what they used to mean.
No, nobody takes care of the elderly, and we just want the cheapest option for taking care of our kids, and fuck education, and good luck with life.
Makes me so mad when I hear people that vote against every possible school levy because I don't have kids. Why should I have to pay school taxes when I don't have kids? I go, you idiots, they're the future of our country. Okay? Right. It is the kids now that are paying my Social Security benefits. I'm old. All right? I grew up paying into Social Security, and that went to people that are already dead. Okay, so now the people growing up are paying mine.
Right.
And the babies now that need to get educated will be paying the 40-somethings.
Hopefully.
All right? Well,
right? Like,
unless we make them all stupid by not teaching them anything, then who's going to do it, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many, 35, 40-year-olds, they think, oh, I'll never get my Social Security.
Oh, I mean, it's just assumed, right? Like I'm in that age bracket, and that's exactly what I assume.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
sad,
you shouldn't. We need to protect it because,
yeah.
If you're paying FICA, some of that money's going to me.
Right.
All right. Because my money went to my grandparents and my parents' generation. And I paid a lot too. I paid during my working career, I was making pretty good money. So I paid more in every month than I'm getting back out now.
Right.
So they're probably going to make a little money on me.
I'm sure.
But the idea is that nobody starves in old age.
Yeah.
So people that made a little bit less than I did, or a lot less than I did, only get a little bit less Social Security.
Right.
Nobody gets rich on that. It's only something to help out. It doesn't pay all the bills.
No.
I could never pay the mortgage payment, for example, and all the utilities and car insurance and car payments. You can't do that.
No.
It's not enough. So
no, you're just kind of
it's expected that when you retire, you don't get your entire life savings in your home ripped away from you by corruption.
Right.
Because my Social Security would be fine if we still had our house and our little mushroom farm and all of that. Yeah. You don't need to make a whole lot of money. You live up in the middle of nowhere in a paid-for house.
Right. Well, that's another interesting aspect, too, is a paid-for house. So you pointed out, and I do find that interesting for anybody because I've come across more people than I care to count now who've had a similar experience that has either gone really bad or gone better than yours, but you didn't have a mortgage on your house. Therefore, this enabled that to happen.
Right.
Which is like astounding and strange.
They won't screw the mortgage companies.
Right.
Because the mortgage companies will send a big shot lawyer down and kick their ass.
Right.
Okay, so they won't do that. They did a lot of research before they took it out.
Yeah. It seems like it's too well articulated and organized to have been anything other than just straight corruption and corroboration.
Well, it was straight corruption, and when I pointed it out, they just ignored it.
Yeah.
They've never denied most of my accusations. What they do in their briefs is they just ignore them.
Yeah.
Anything they want to go away, they just ignore. Yeah. It's an old lawyer trial. I read about it in the books.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a dozen pieces of evidence against your client and you've got one thing that points maybe he didn't do it, you hammer that point and you ignore all the others. You don't try to rebut them because if you make a silly rebuttal, it's even worse.
So
you just ignore it.
It's like not talking to cops, right? Just like...
Or it's like changing the subject with a kid. Or your dog is irritating you and you're busy, so you just throw the ball, and he runs and gets it, like, okay, problem solved.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. So what would have been interesting to examine in any other circumstance, and now thinking of two of them and know that they were bought outright, is a mortgage does create this sort of legal stratification from people trying to like get in and take something, right?
One of the definitions of a mortgage in the old Washington laws, mortgage and deed were often used synonymously. So a mortgage is a deed.
Okay.
Because if you owe money on a house, you don't own it till you pay it off. The bank owns it.
Right.
All right. And they're not going to take the bank's house.
Yeah.
So that's the corruption part of it.
You can't fight money. And the banks have all the money.
Well, the banks have all the money and they won't touch them anyway.
Yeah.
They just won't, because then the feds get involved and it's bank fraud.
Right.
The feds didn't care about what happened to me, Maybe they will if 10,000 people write them a letter.
Right.
But my only hope is that Justice Gonzalez will take another look at what happened and say, wait a minute, you cannot steal a citizen's property. I've never spent a day in jail.
Right.
I mean, I've never laid down and gone to sleep one single night in my life. I have no felonies, no misdemeanors, nothing. So I've lived a law-abiding life for the most part, and
everybody spits on sidewalks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't just steal their property.
No.
Because the guy that sold it to his own sister decided he wanted it back to sell it again. And that's exactly what the government let him do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's astounding on all fronts, but also like you have the same thing that most people do who have been in any alternative activities of like growing weed right as it's sort of like emerging there's this guilt that sort of sits in and you're like, well, maybe I'm just the person who's subject to these things. And it's like not true and it shouldn't be true, you know. Nobody should take anything away from anybody in that regard.
I don't think so because you know, I told you it happened back in the 70s. My very first house, and then my last house. That's funny, because I just showed you my very first motorcycle license plate, and 50 years later, my last motorcycle plate. But that's the same timeline for this. And it just so happened that it was Jehovah's Witnesses each time, you know, that did it.
Well, there's trends like in these things, and if you see them, there's something in there of a pattern that can make sense, you know, and hopefully kind
synchronicity.
Right, but for some sort of resolution or something eventually maybe. According
to them, it is resolved. And I don't want to just suck it in and move on. I have to.
Yeah.
But because they put the road right on top of my water well, and the water well was platted and approved and signed by the county health department.
Right.
All right. Which certified, and it even says right on the plat, no driveway can be constructed across. There's a 100-foot perimeter around a water well.
Right.
There's a sacred 100-foot perimeter, and you can't even cut a driveway across it. Well, they put a county road
and then just
covering the entire thing, right up 18 inches from my wellhead.
Yeah.
And it took less than a year to destroy the well.
Yeah.
And it destroyed my cannabis business, and at that time I didn't even know it was done so that a competing cannabis business could buy the property
from the same Jehovah's Witness.
No, it was they sold 2 lots. One of them went to the cannabis owner, and the other one went to his employee.
Gotcha.
And so they bought them together at the same time, went into closing at the same time, within hours of getting a county commissioner resolution that had been accepted as a county road back in 1992.
Yeah.
Because what they did, the law says you submit it on a plat, and if the road is approved, acceptance of the dedication is evidenced by approval by the appropriate agency, which is county commissioners. That plat doesn't have the county commissioner's approval.
Yeah.
It was the planning department that simply divided a 20-acre parcel into 4 lots, so they could sell lots.
Yeah.
And the route isn't even the way they made the county road. The legal access is by easement, a different direction, from the north instead of from the east.
Right.
That's the legal, and that's the way it was always set up. And he just flat out lied. But they had 2 county commissioners meetings, both of them behind my back. And the first one, the county engineer and public works director told him, that is not county road. And so it's in the minutes that the commissioners said, well, we want them to look into this. We want public works to look into this some more, and we'll talk about it next week. The following week, they passed a resolution because Woodsky sent 3 emails, which I got in discovery that week.
Yeah.
He was trying to sell his house. He wanted to get out.
Yeah.
He just wanted out and was willing to do whatever it took to get out.
Right.
But
oh no, you painted him perfectly, and it's this like villainous character that like, if you wouldn't go to bat for your own kid and you just fight for money and ruin other people's lives according, you've just gone against everything you're supposedly standing for. You know?
Right.
So
he'll stand by the religion when his kid's about to die.
Right.
But when he can steal money from somebody,
from a stranger,
the 10 Commandments mean nothing.
What kind of fucking personality is that?
Like... I thought better of him.
Yeah.
I thought better of him. And his wife knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I read people's faces real well, and when we were at a county commissioners meeting later, when I was in there to tell them, it was August 8th, and they said, okay, you be here at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, I showed up at 1 o'clock, and there's all 20 of these people that got together against me, and they came in at 12.
Right.
And they had already been filling their ear. And when I started to talk, every sentence, one of those 20 would raise their hand.
Right.
And he'd say, wait a minute. And he'd call on them.
Just to like,
And just left me sitting there. I had all these documents to show him.
Yeah.
Never got them out of my lap.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, your time is up. Get out of here. We're not changing our mind. I mean, total complete lack of due process. And they used to film and record the county commissioner meetings.
And they don't anymore.
And they quit. They quit. And one of the commissioners who signed the order taking my property was one that made him quit because it might, listen to this. They recorded it on, not video, it was audio recordings. He said, it costs too much money to store all that audio. Yeah. The meetings are 3 hours long every Monday.
These podcasts are 3 hours long, right?
Right. And so it costs way too much to save that audio. And so they quit recording the meetings. Right. Okay, so now the meeting minutes, the clerk writes stuff down, and then the commissioners look at it like, oh, we're not putting that in there, we're not putting that in there. Okay, here, sign this.
Right.
Yeah, like I went in there and I showed them the documents and everything else. You know what the meeting minute says? It says Mark Keith is confused about his lot sizes. Mark Keith says he is confused about his lot sizes.
Wow.
I never said I was confused. I know exactly what my lot sizes are. Yeah. But that's what's in the minutes.
Right.
And nothing about the evidence. I wrote a letter to Bob Ferguson, Attorney General of Washington. Yeah. Told him what happened. Wrote a letter to the Liquor and Cannabis Board. Told him what happened. So Bob Ferguson, the Attorney General, had an assistant Attorney General who was the chief legal counsel for the Liquor Board, the Liquor and Cannabis Board, wrote me a letter to tell me that this is a private matter. You'll have to get a lawyer, and that the only way the Attorney General can get involved is if your local prosecutor requests assistance or if the governor requests that he do it.
So what do you have to then write letters to the governor?
Well, I'm getting there. The first thing is I went and showed that letter to the prosecutor. Her name's Catherine Burke.
Right.
I showed her the letter.
Yeah.
In fact, I put it in her hand. She's got a copy of it. Yeah. All right. She's not going to call them. She didn't call them. If the Attorney General would have investigated this, he would have put a bunch of people in jail. Yeah. Okay, but he didn't investigate it because she wouldn't. The other option is if the governor will request it. Right. So I wrote a very professional letter to the governor, explained what had happened, and said, will you please request Attorney General Bob Ferguson? I will give evidence under penalty of perjury. This needs to be investigated. Right. Nothing. And then the Court of Appeals, the judge in Ferry County dismissed it. Right. The Court of Appeals affirmed it. Then, and only after the Court of Appeals affirmed it the first time through the court, that's when I got those affidavits for the first time that were used against me. I had to get them from the clerk of the Supreme Court. Yeah. That lawyer wouldn't even send them to me. But I had the clerk of the Supreme Court send them to me, and when I read them, I was mad. Because it was perjury. It was flat out perjury, not a mistake. Okay? Yeah. And because they destroyed the records that would prove they had committed perjury before they did it. And apparently they're used to a bunch of hillbillies that don't save records. Yeah. But Vivian, when I met her, she had her old electric bills going back 30 years or 20 years. She saved everything.
She saved it all.
So she saved it all. So after she went, she had me in the habit. So all my tax statements, you tear them, you send one half back with your check, save the other half. Everybody else, okay, it's paid, throw it away. Yeah. But I saved mine, and I've got them, and I'll show them to any law enforcement agency that wants to take action, because fraud was committed, and it was government action, in support of private individuals to steal property from me so it could be sold, and other people would benefit by it. Now, if they wanted that to be a county road, there's a process they can use, eminent domain. Yeah. See, they could have just condemned it and then paid me.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but they want my water well, they got to pay me for my cannabis business.
Right.
Okay? They didn't do that. They stole it, then destroyed the well. Then the Department of Ecology wouldn't let the well company fix it because it didn't have a protected radius.
Right. Because they had breached it.
Because they had breached it with a county road.
And did you get blamed for that, or did they? or anybody.
Nobody will listen to it.
Right,
I've been barking at the proverbial brick wall. Nobody gives a rat's ass.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington is lawless.
Yeah.
That's the only word you can say for it. It's lawless.
Yeah.
And it's lawless, and I can't speak for all of Eastern Washington. That was probably rude. It's Ferry County. And it's only the north half of Ferry County. The south half of Ferry County is the Colville Indian Reservation.
Yeah.
And they don't even go hardly to Republic ever.
Right.
It's the closest place to get groceries. They drive 60 miles away. They go to Omak or whatever to get their groceries. They won't even go into Republic.
Was the same lady that you were talking about who had land taken away in Ferry County, or was she somewhere else?
She worked for me for a little while when I had the business.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's still there. I don't know. I left there 7 years ago.
Right.
So
as of 2
I don't
days
know
ago,
anything
right?
now.
Right. It's all.
We went back. Natalia and I went back a few months ago to gather up some things and take inventory of stuff and see what we got to do to try to sell it.
Yeah.
You know, I was gonna sell it last year when I listed it.
Right.
And when I left, it was the middle of winter. So as soon as I left, the wood stove went out. All the pipes in the whole house, they were copper.
Yeah.
And had pressure in the well. You know, not in the well, but what I was doing, I had a water tank and an RV pump.
Yeah.
And I'd back up to my house, take a water hose from the pump, hook it up to my faucet, open the faucet, and it would charge the pressure tank for my well.
Right.
And then I just shut the valve going down to the well.
That makes sense.
So I had pressure in all my pipes when I left,
and
every single one of them busted, you know.
Yeah.
Like every 3 feet, there's a little slit opened up in the pipe. So
Of course,
I just ripped every bit of it out and put it back with, what is it, PEX or something?
Yeah, I remember reading that. It was like all water lines on your Zillow ad or whatever it was. All water lines.
It's all done. And I made all the hot water lines red and the cold water lines blue. That's what's nice about using the plastic tubing. Plus, when it freezes, the water stops.
Yeah.
But when it thaws, it works again. It's not.
Yeah.
It's perfect for cabins.
Yeah, the only thing you can burst really is that like the metal angles and
but
stuff.
Those are thick.
Yeah.
They're brass,
tough.
which is kind of soft.
Yep. Yeah.
So they
love
say they
PEX,
can
man.
freeze hard, like 30 below.
Yeah. How cold does it get up there? Does it get pretty cold?
The coldest I ever saw it was 30 below.
30 below, yeah.
Yeah, but the last few years, like 10 to 20 is as cold as it gets.
Yeah.
Which is still cold. But
temperature's changing now. But yeah.
it's still close enough to the Pacific, it moderates some of that. It's when that Arctic air comes down straight down, it gets cold. It usually doesn't stay 30 below for very long.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we were going to fix it, and still am.
It's still
I would
yours,
love for a government official to take action and look into what I've said. I've offered. In fact, I told Ferry County in at least 10 letters, will you please notify the FBI? I will tell them exactly what I'm telling you, and it's a felony if I lie to the FBI.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them what's in this letter. Will you please send this letter to them?
Right.
Okay? Do whatever. No.
They won't do it.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
And they won't take our complaint. What are they going to listen to me if I go into them?
Right.
Plus, a court already decided. So they'd say, the court already decided.
What I'm not trying to incriminate myself or anybody else here, but like, what if somebody came in as a purchaser of that land and pushed the issue? If it was some random buyer, because no doubt if it isn't somebody from that area who wants to buy that, all of that stuff, if handed to somebody, is like a disclosure. What happens? They just drive that person out and tell them to fuck themselves, you know? Like,
they would, for sure. I don't know how to, crimes add up.
Yeah.
And liars have to tell additional lies to cover the last lie.
Right.
And I mean, everybody knows that. And that's what's happened here. And they've gotten deep into it. If the feds ever looked at it, they would say, what kind of crap is going on in Washington's cannabis industry? They're stealing land from one grower to benefit another grower.
Right.
So a Jehovah's Witness can sell it twice? What on earth? It's the face of white Christian nationalism. you don't see anything but white people.
Right.
And they were mad that I brought Vivian there.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Got that kind of round face like Natalia does. Spoke with a Soviet accent.
Yeah.
And they hated her. Called her a
She's the
wetback.
enemy.
She came home at one time asking me to,
Right.
look at my sweater. Is it wet? What's that mean? She goes, what means wetback?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, crap,
Yeah.
And I brought her here,
Yeah.
to die. And she died in that house,
Yeah.
in my arms. And Natalia's in my arms. Natalia was there.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever want to, that was my home.
Yeah.
I expected that I would grow old and die there.
Right.
But I'm not going to live anywhere that I'm under attack.
No. And she wouldn't want you to be there,
Not anymore.
No, no.
Natalia and I are both pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
We didn't feel anything of her presence when we were there.
Fuck no, dude. Like, the place has got to be void of it after all this,
but
right?
we had a ghost there the whole time we were there. It was kind of funny.
Really?
Yeah. Vivian figured it was the guy that used to live there. There's an old man lived there for 50 years or something. Where that house is built. He had an old shack.
Sure.
She figured it has got to be him because she would just get moved, just weird stuff.
Yeah.
I'd go, did you do that? No. Did you? No. So we had this little thing. It must be a ghost. But it was obviously one of us did it and forgot. But still, we didn't feel any sort of presence from her. And I did before.
Yeah.
And then I left and went to New York, and I'm sure she went with me. But neither Natalia or I feel her anymore. We remember her.
Right.
But we don't feel the presence. Whatever is left of us after we're gone has dissipated. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people think the spirit goes on, but everybody can think what they want. It's still religion.
Yeah.
Even if it's my personal beliefs, it would be considered religion.
Oh, right. But yeah, and that's why personal beliefs are so much more important, because they're not dogmatic and they're not like, following
Believe
some
in
script.
somebody else's thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, I believe my dead wife's in my dog. Every time I look at my dog, I'm like, she was on the bed, like.
And maybe she is.
Weird transferences. Yeah. It's like it's very odd, but, like we put emphasis on where energy travels. And I think that that's like an important, aspect to it. And if she's not there anymore, then it's like, it's a perfect time to be like, I'm fucking done with this.
Yeah.
You don't need to be there.
The problem with that line of reasoning is if I sell the property, all claim is gone.
Right.
But I'm not going to do another 10 years in court.
No.
We talked about that last night. I'm going to be 70 next birthday.
Yeah.
So I plan to be riding motorcycles when I'm 80, but probably not when I'm 90. So if I've got 10 years, I want these 10 years to be doing things like what we did today.
Right, like, did you think of this shit
mountains.
once today besides just like climbing and riding? Like, was it on your mind at all? Or you just like,
when I'm on that motorcycle, Ferry County doesn't exist. That's my therapy. Or like construction, I built that stuff in the garage and built me a little workshop and stuff like that. And when my mind is occupied with one thing, I don't think about other things. So I'll measure a board and get a measurement, but to keep my brain sharp, I don't write it down.
Right.
I just remember what the measurement is and then go to the board. Now, sometimes I got to go, shit, got to go back and measure it again. But, I do that to keep my mind sharp.
Yeah.
And, but when I'm doing construction work or wiring or anything else, that's the last thing on my mind.
Yeah, and motorcycles are math in the same way, but it's split second math as you're trying to figure out, like, does that 25 mile an hour going around that fucking hairpin turn today, is that a reality? Or
could I go 50 anyway?
I almost saw you get fucking pegged right in.
You saw my peg, didn't you? I go, fuck, I hope he wasn't watching.
Oh, dude, but you pointed out every rock too, and I was like, thank God, I almost hit all of them.
Well, see, the peg is my early warning, because I lean that lowrider far enough on the right side. It's the front exhaust pipe, and I just hear it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really freak me out. It, shoots some sparks and shit.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
okay. Yeah, all right. Well, we got a little bit more. There's some give in it before the tire lifts up.
Dude, and
but
those
on the other
corners are
side,
well
it was my
paved.
peg. It was my peg hit and started folding. So when it folds up on my foot, it kind of freaks me. I was like, I gotta fix that.
Oh yeah, man, because it'll pick your whole bike up and move it over. Metal's strong.
Well, but the foot pegs are hinged.
Right. Oh, they are. So they'll flip it.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, these are.
I think those are too.
They are. Those front ones are.
Yeah, that's a
terrifying.
safety thing. If they weren't hinged,
yeah.
they would lift your rear wheel up.
Yeah, they bring you right up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's scary.
That would suck.
That would suck.
I've never scratched that motorcycle. I don't want to break it.
No, it's a perfect bike. It's like, I mean, everybody loves Dynas now because they're Dunzo, right? So everybody wants them. So you got it.
I don't see any reason they put 2 cams on them, to tell you the truth. I think it has a 500 RPM higher red line.
Does it really? Okay.
Because with a single cam, the push rods are at a steeper angle. So there's more side loads on them.
Right,
Because your rocker arms are level,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so your push rod's coming in at an angle. And the more angle, the more side loads,
Right.
and it's RPM limiting.
Right.
Okay, so by having 2 cams, they were able to make the push rods run more
Just
straight up and down. Not perfectly, but
Better.
closer to it.
Yeah.
And it gave an extra 500 RPM. But
Yeah.
who goes 5,000 RPM on a Harley anyway?
Nobody.
I've never hit it.
I do wonder, after talking to that guy today about his adventure bike, if the Pan America has similar sort of attributes.
No,
in terms of
those
speed and
have
such.
it's a water-cooled motor, and it's set up for higher RPM. It's got real high
is.
compression.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't remember what the red line is, but it's way above mine.
I haven't looked into it. Just all the special things people say about them that have them that I've been around. I'm like, what?
It's positive. See, on a bike like that, you might be out hill climbing or something, and you want to be able to have enough RPMs to take your bike up the hill.
Yeah.
And if it was geared like a street bike, you'd be going too fast.
Yeah.
You'd get out of control just trying to keep your engine from dying.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So those engines want to run higher, and then they're geared for that.
Gotcha.
So you can have a high RPM, get lots of horsepower, and then you're not going so fast that you can't control it.
Yeah. So it's
They sound like fun. I'd like to have one, but I got an Indian coming. I can't just. I'm gonna spend my life savings on motorcycles, man.
Sure you can. Fuck it, dude. No.
Well, let me tell you something. My kids are more successful financially than I have been. I made them do entrepreneurial things as kids and learn things and bartered with them and shit like that. So they kind of got that entrepreneurial thing, because we raise children in this country that you're going to grow up, you're going to get a job, you're going to work, you're going to get a paycheck, you're going to do all these things.
Don't forget school debt.
Yeah, well, the school bit, but the school prepares you for a better job, okay, or even better. And this is where schools, I think, fail. They're teaching them to pass tests.
Right.
They're not teaching them to imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. And nothing has ever been made unless somebody imagined it.
Right.
And they don't teach that.
No.
And I think they could. I think it would be, and I'm sure there's teachers that do. They'll, have some sort of a problem. We got to arrive at a solution. I used to always like word problems and math better.
Yeah.
If they just write it on a piece of paper as an equation, anybody can do that. Right?
Why do you think people don't like problems anymore, problem solving?
They're losing critical thinking skills.
Right.
And as people stop driving, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it's crazy. You drive this rental car around, and where were we coming through? California or some shit? And I was like, fuck this. We'd been on the road for like 600 miles. I was like, it's big, sir. Worst place to try this, right? But I just let go of the fucking wheel, and it will just pinball you in between the mayo and the mustard and just keep you in the fucking lane. I was like, what is happening? You don't have to drive cars anymore. It's just sensing everything on the road.
How about when you come up behind somebody?
That's the thing, is I have no idea. I wouldn't fuck with it.
See, that's one of my issues with self-driving cars is driving, and riding a motorcycle is even more so.
Yeah.
But driving is the most complicated thing most of us do. I mean, literally, we do it automatically, but think of all of the calculus that our brain is doing as we approach somebody and we have to slow down and we want to come to a stop just as we get behind them or to the red light.
Right.
Not before, not after. That takes an awful lot of calculating power, because now you got to get on your brake and you got to sense how much braking you have and recalculate.
Yeah.
See? It's complicated. All right. So it keeps us smart.
Yeah.
And for people who don't do that, or they don't do anything challenging, I mean, you can get the same thing from riding a bicycle even.
Oh, for sure.
But you have to use those spatial senses.
And that is critical thinking.
It is. And like I was talking, well, last night, we weren't on camera, but I practice balancing. A lot of old people get broken hips because they get all wobbly and shit. So I try to stand on one foot when I'm putting my socks on.
Right.
And then put my shoe on, you know.
Just
and
to keep balance.
I don't always succeed.
Right.
But what they found is if you're trying to balance, and they have people on an EEG, I think is what they call it, to read where their brain's working. It lights up the same regions when you're wobbling trying to get your balance. It lights up the same regions as when you're trying to do a complicated task, whether it's mathematics or some other science thing. But you're trying to figure something out that you don't quite understand, and you're working on. That's what's happening when you're wobbling all around the balance.
Yeah.
So while it does teach and stabilize your muscles,
Right.
at the same time, it's exercising those critical thinking neurons in your brain, keeping them active.
Yeah.
And creating new ones.
Yeah, this
They used to say, I remember reading in textbooks when I was in school, that you're born with all the brain neurons that you're ever going to have.
Right, and that's it.
And you gradually lose them over time, and that's why old people are senile. And it makes total sense, right?
Yeah, it's true.
But the fact is, you can build muscle at any time, and you can add neurons.
Yeah, we've proven that.
Yeah. You can, just by doing critical tasks.
Yeah.
It causes the neurons to...
Also alternative tasks. I know one of the things my dad preached forever before he died was just like, don't ever do anything the same way twice. Like brush your teeth different, put on your socks different, everything, do it different all the time. If you get in too many habits, you're just like literally... You're just driving automated
Because we're
vehicles.
creatures of habit. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he was like...
I brush my teeth the same way every night. I'm not doing it right, man.
Right. See? But that shit stuck with me my entire life, and I was like, great, I should probably do something. So I'm always trying
I do
to,
that
like,
in my
maneuver.
exercise. I do something different.
Right, which is huge. That's super important.
I do that just when I'm messing around with the weights. I try to come up with different things to try to work different parts and stuff.
Oh, yeah, man.
Just to keep everything working,
Right.
you know, at my age, because I'll lose muscle mass otherwise.
Yeah.
And lift a little bit of weights, I can keep what I have and keep myself able to climb mountains.
Yeah,
like
man.
we did today. Man, that was fun.
Hell yeah, it was.
It wasn't
Yeah.
exactly climbing a mountain, it was hiking up a steep trail, but still.
Oh, Jesus. But
we
it's
went up,
you know, like I've lost...
7,200 feet, I think.
Yeah, we went high.
That was some thin air.
I always thought I was in pretty good shape from mushroom farming in general, but the more you hand off to people, the less you do physically. And like, yeah, you have to start keeping up at a point where you're like, fuck, man, I've handed off most of these physical activities to other people, and I'm just getting like slowly like less and less able to like climb a mountain with efficiency and just feel like a smoker the whole time.
Well, you got to just go back to doing those things, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's encouraging seeing you do it, man. Like, it's great. And it's a good, like, alternative to, like, focusing on the chaos that you've been following for 7 years.
Well, I would have died.
Yeah.
You know, betrayal and injustice.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's innocent people in prison, and that has to be the ultimate injustice.
Yeah.
To know that you were accused and convicted and sent to prison for something somebody else did.
And your whole life's over.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's ruined, you know. Or you made a bad choice and did something and got sent. That would be more like regret, you know, and you might ruminate the same way about that. But for the innocent person, You know, it hurts even more because we expect our government, for some reason, to protect us.
Yeah.
Right? To protect and serve.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in a lot of cases, probably most cases, they do.
Yeah. I think they do and they don't. And it's not necessarily a refined system because it's tentative and it's dependent upon people. And people are ultimately the failures of one another, right? And it's like, that is the worst portion. But I think the most important part to telling your story on any platform, even this one, which I'm grateful to be able to share it, and just to get to know you in general, is that it doesn't necessarily solve all of your issues with something that's completely seemingly insolvable and corrupt from the get-go, but it informs how everybody else makes decisions in this like extremely difficult world to navigate. And like the people I pointed out, from, you know, Maggie's mushrooms all the way to, you know, the foxes in North Carolina and through on and through, it's like people just have these battles, and unless they heard about it happening with somebody else, they'd have nobody to talk to about it, you know. They'd have nobody to really understand, like, am I just fucking crazy? So no matter what, the story...
Well, I think we're wired to trust people.
Right, yeah.
You know, and we expect people to be good.
Yeah.
And so when they're not, it's a disappointment.
Yeah.
And, you know, so some people go to the other extreme. They say, well, just don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? But you have to.
Yeah.
You know, we trust our enemies. You know, we may have voted for one guy, all right, but when we have a green light, we expect somebody who voted for the other guy to stop for their friggin' red light, right? We trust them.
Yeah.
And you read in the newspaper all this political crap. Oh, they don't like the country. This party doesn't like the country, whatever. Well, bullshit.
Yeah.
You depend on that person,
Yeah.
and you're trusting your life when you go through your green light that guy you said hates the country is going to love it enough to stop for a red light.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah, right.
You know, see, we need to be able to trust people.
Yeah.
It's necessary because society wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, you go into a restaurant, you order a meal, they expect you to pay. They trust you to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, now, yeah, there's penalties if you don't and you
Right.
get caught, but a lot of people just run out. I'm not a lot, but some people do. They just run out.
It happens, right?
It's because they were trusted and they betrayed that trust.
Yeah.
You know, and it sucks when it's us that happens to.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah, it doesn't mean trusting people.
You wish things like that would happen to people who have screwed other people.
Right. It never does, right?
No, but it has to. You know, I had people that were just really bad, and I wondered the shit they do to people, you know, and taking their own, you know, one of the big peeves with construction workers is we have to supply our own tools, right?
Right.
So you take a measurement, you lay your tape measure down, you do something, you go to pick up your tape measure and it's gone, you get mad, right?
Yeah,
you start looking around.
Who the fuck?
Yeah, right. You know, it's a betrayal.
Yeah, it is.
It's not right. We need to be able to trust, and society can't exist without it.
No, it certainly can't. And I think like this is the funny transition even to the growing like mushroom industry in general, is like we're all entrusting one another to help one another and not just give each other false information, you know, and really like we're trying to do these like videos with farms who are sharing their story and their process and their things specifically to help other farms succeed, because
right. And I'm surprised they are, you know. 20 years ago, if you tried to do that, you'd go to any farm and they'd go, get out of here.
Yeah.
No, this is proprietary.
Right. And I think we're realizing that the competitive edge is not proprietary anymore. Look at a 1950s video of mushroom cultivation, your video, or today. It's all the
state of the art. It's an evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still like everybody's following the same, you know, traction and trajectory. They use the same filters, the same agar sources, the same fucking grain spawn. They fruit the same strains, you know.
We still make babies the same way.
Yeah, right.
It's, you know, certain things, because that's the life cycle of the mushroom.
Yeah.
You know, from spore to culture to
nobody's figured out how to alter that.
Yeah. I don't want to have to do spores.
Right,
you know?
right.
Which most cases nowadays you don't.
No,
you know,
it's all over, right?
But somewhere somebody is still, you know,
Yeah.
trying to find the ultimate strain, and sometimes they hit really good, and that's because they're playing with spores.
Oh, I loved your story of finding that like 20-foot tall one and not dropping a knife on Vivian's head.
That was a fun story, and that is the mushroom that is on the cover of the DVD, on a grown on a laundry basket, and fruiting. I think it had like 15 pounds or something like that of mushrooms on that thing.
Yeah.
I never weighed the straw. I just pasteurized it.
Just did it.
But yeah, that was a beautiful mushroom specimen, oyster, high.
Yeah.
You know, above reach, so I had to climb up and get it.
Do you remember what it was on? Was it just like a oak or something?
No, I can tell you though, they're on alders.
They're on alders.
Yeah,
Okay.
in this part of the country.
Yeah,
they're
that's
on alders.
everything that's here. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll have an alder that fell over and it'll just be lined with them all the way down. They're easy to pick.
Yep.
But they're usually small.
Yeah.
You know, 3 or 4 caps. This thing had a stem that came out and it was just a huge flower. It's like this big.
That's wild.
For an oyster fruiting body. And I'm going to have that. And Vivian was, oh no, honey, you can't go way up there. You'll get hurt. You know,
You're
come
like,
back
watch
with
me.
a ladder. She goes, come back with a ladder. And we're like 5 miles up the trail. I'm thinking, yeah, I'll just throw it over my shoulder. Right?
Yeah. That's true.
But hell yeah, a couple of sticks leaned up, you know, small logs you can find.
You get resourceful when chaga's 30 feet in the air. You're like, huh. Start looking around for like downed logs or like.
I'd be looking for a rock, man. I took out squirrels when I was a kid. I got good with rocks. I probably would have made a good pitcher. Yeah. I'd be out with my friends and, you know, take a squirrel. I'd take it home, skin it, and eat it. You know, cook them up. Man. They're good eating.
Oh, they are. Yeah, tiny little chickens.
Rats with tails.
Rats with tails.
Yeah.
All right, so you're putting this behind you. This is sort of like your position now to be able to move on, and you're 69. Mm-hmm. You have everything ahead of you that is motorcycles and mayhem and fun.
It's retirement.
It's
I'm
retirement.
done. And I'm not going to spend my retirement beating my head against a wall against a corrupt system.
Which is great.
If the Supreme Court wants to take a second look at this, Chief Justice Gonzalez signed the order denying review. He would be the one to do it.
He's the one to write letters to.
If people want something they can do to help, yes, write letters. You just go online and search Washington State Supreme Court, and you'll get their website with an address on it. And just write a very polite, like 2 or 3 sentence letter to please take a look at this. The guy got taken for a ride. You know, and
is there a case number? Is there?
There is, but I don't remember it offhand. It's Keith. It's Marc R. Keith v. Ferry County. Marc Keith versus Ferry County.
Okay.
And so people can remember that.
I think people, regardless of if an effort turns into anything, and the last thing I want it to do is to affect you in a negative way. But it's amazing how many people are just like, what do we do? Because short of, like you said, a GoFundMe, nobody knows what to do. And chances are nothing will be able to be done.
The only thing I could do with a GoFundMe is hire expensive lawyers that would just spend it all
money
up and waste it. Yeah, that's not going to help. Instead of sending money, send a letter to the Chief Justice. Send letters to the FBI. What I'm saying here, I'll repeat under oath to the FBI.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a felony if I'm lying.
Yeah.
So, but they need to look into this because a crime was committed.
Yeah.
And then more crimes were committed by government officials, both elected and appointed, to further the crime. And it was also somebody could sell a piece of property twice.
Yeah.
You know, there's no county road across my property before 2016, and there's no county road across the property next to it on the way back to the county road, and there's no county road across the first part of the last property. It ends half a mile from my property. That's the official ending. The county engineer records show it. The part in the middle was never accepted. But see, they put it on their short plat as a requirement of filing. But it wasn't accepted. And the Planning Commission made that clear that it was. They even said if they should ever petition for a county road, they'll have to fix it and the property adjacent, which is Boise.
Yeah.
And of course, the county commissioners have to approve county roads and get a right-of-way deed and all of that.
Yeah.
And the Court of Appeals, Chief Justice or Associate Chief Justice Brown wrote right in his opinion, he listed the 8 things according to law that mean I own the property.
Yeah.
And just rejected them all. Now, how do you say you're going to exercise your discretion to ignore the Constitution?
Right.
But they can. They can. There's no consequences.
Right. They're the highest possible.
They're gods in their courtroom. The worst thing that would happen to them is they would get overturned.
Right.
Okay, and that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But before that's going to happen, the Supreme Court has to grant me review.
Yeah.
Okay, and when they grant review, look at the evidence. That was private property. They stole it. They took the parcel they stole, wiped out all the records in the county. The only records of that parcel are my paper records, which I will provide to the FBI or the state attorney general or the liquor board or the governor or whoever wants to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Because nobody will do their job. They draw paychecks. And one of the things the Court of Appeals does, if there is a mission for me in the next 10 to 20 years, it's to petition for an end to unpublished opinions.
Okay.
Because what they'll do, they'll just break every law, ignore it, ignore the Constitution like they did in my case, decide against me, just asking for a trial. That's all I want is a trial.
Yeah.
Okay, they said, no, you're not going to get one, and we're going to ignore the Constitution. We don't care. And then they make the opinion unpublished.
Yeah.
And when the opinion's unpublished, it rarely gets reviewed by the Supreme Court because it's not precedent setting.
Yeah.
But I had Supreme Court cases that were precedent setting and gave them to the Court of Appeals. They just didn't care.
Yeah.
They just didn't care. They did exactly what Ferry County did. The things that were unpleasant, they just ignored.
Well, I think the one thing that they underestimate is who you are and how many people you've affected. And you can like negate it or belittle it or just be humbled by it or whatever reaction you have to it. But the fact of the matter is like people all around have like run to like your emphasis on how to do something in a world that's very important to all of us. And no matter what happens, you know, I do think that a lot of people will write those letters, you know.
I hope they do. And know that I didn't quit either.
Yeah.
I fought this for 7 years and they just beat me. I didn't quit.
No.
When the Supreme Court denies review, you've already gone as far as you can.
No, you're doing everything you should.
I don't have a next option.
Yeah.
You know, federal court would simply, like I said before, best case scenario, would they remand it back to Ferry County and I'd jump back to 2016 and do it all over again? I'll die of old age.
Yeah.
Okay, I need the Supreme Court to do its job and enforce the laws of the state of Washington.
Yeah. It's a fucking killer
But they
state.
don't.
Right?
You know, I don't get it. One lawyer told me it's because judges are elected.
Yeah.
Okay. But what would be better for your re-election than standing up for the Constitution?
Right.
You could campaign on that.
Yeah.
But there's more Jehovah's Witnesses in Ferry County than pot growers.
Right.
So they'll go with them.
Yeah, of course.
See, that's what the lawyer told me. That's not coming from my mouth. He just said that. He goes, there's more of them than there are of you, and why should they do something for one voter when you're probably not going to vote for him anyway? You were a Bernie Sanders delegate. You think you're going to vote for them? They're Republicans, okay? Yeah. So they're not going to do it for me and piss off 20 people that might vote for them or probably would vote for them.
Well, it's the problematic reality that I always remark upon this one movie that movie's pretty good, Killing Them Softly, but like the ending line is just, you know, America is not a country, America's a business, now fucking pay me. That's what it is. And it's like the worst case scenario when you're going into these situations where you're just being literally lied to and stolen from. Because you're like, of course it is. Like, of course this is what's going to happen, right?
But you shouldn't.
But you shouldn't.
Of course it shouldn't happen.
Right.
That's why we have laws. That's why we have elections.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we pay taxes to support law enforcement. The law enforcement should do what its title implies.
Yeah. And if you can pull out something that is completely hindering that sort of process by corruption.
Yeah, corruption. There's no other word for it, because nothing but corruption would cause a local prosecutor to get the tax assessor for the county to lie under oath.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got the documents proving it was a lie. Were right there before the court. I produced the tax records.
Yeah, they were there.
Okay, but how difficult is it to look at tax records for fiscal year, the amount paid, the amount billed, and look, here's that road parcel. He paid taxes on that. Then you see a 4-sentence affidavit saying he never paid taxes, and his taxes would have been exactly the same with or without the road.
Right.
And for all these years. Yet I had a separate bill for taxes for the road. It was just a lie.
Yeah.
But she said it after they had removed the parcel from the record and made it disappear. They didn't just discontinue it.
Yeah.
They could discontinue a parcel and blend it with another one.
Right.
They just made it go away.
Yeah.
And then lied about my taxes. Now, that should be a matter that the FBI is interested in.
Yeah.
Because if they want to police the cannabis industry, why allow corruption? Why would the liquor board allow it?
Right.
You know, I wrote directly to the board.
Yeah.
And they passed it to their attorney, and I wrote directly to Bob Ferguson, the Attorney General of Washington, and he passed it to the same attorney. She's an assistant attorney general.
Yeah.
And she wrote a letter essentially telling me I'm on my own.
Yeah.
You know, you're on your own. You'll have to hire a lawyer and go to court.
Yeah.
So nobody did their job. Real good friend of mine, probably one of the few really decent people in Ferry County I know, who will remain nameless so he doesn't become a target.
Yeah, don't put him in it, right?
Yeah, he told me, no, I'm not going to say their name. It's going to be Bill and Jane.
Yeah,
but anyway, Bill and Jane told me that keep pushing, because somewhere, someday, sometime, somebody is going to say, you know what, this is my job. I have to do this.
Right. You can't just ignore this stuff.
Yeah, but nobody did.
Right.
I went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Not yet.
And Chief Justice Gonzalez,
Right.
review denied.
Right.
You know, when it's pure government corruption. So anyway, none of this has anything to do with mushrooms other than all those neighbors up there hated them. They were convinced I was growing weed when we had the mushroom farm. And they were spreading all these rumors and shit. And so a Border Patrol officer rented the house across the street. And I thought, you know, because that's kind of like you're saying in Maine, there's very little law enforcement. So a lot of times when there's calls, the Border Patrol answers, you know, domestic batteries or whatever. They take the call.
Sometimes they don't have guns. They don't have anything.
Well, the Border Patrol does.
They do, yeah.
We use that Canadian border up there, man.
Oh, yeah.
Canucks are dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
We got to keep an eye on them, man. They all want to come down here because we have such good healthcare system.
They really want our government structure, yes.
Yeah, they need our government, right? Yeah, so anyway, yeah, they're heavily armed. But anyway, an officer, Border Patrol guy moved in across the street. And funny as shit, because he brought his dog home with him. He had the drug dog for the border, and his drug dog knocked up Sophie, my Rottie. And so we got a litter of half Rottie, half black labs. And man, those dogs had the best noses. Everybody, we kept one. He got ran over, man. It was awful.
You're breeding drug dogs.
Oh, he was mad. Yeah, he was mad. And so we offered him a puppy, and he wouldn't take it because it's not full blood. I'm like, dude.
Oh, that's not Nazi-esque. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, well, that's not full-blood black lab, you know.
Right.
I go, well, it's not your dog anyway. It's the Border Patrol, so we stole a load from him. But his dog was at our house. It was funny. His dog, the other funny thing about that, that dog would come over to our house because he loved our dog, you know. They were buddies. So he'd come over, And we'd open the door, he'd come right in, and he'd run through that house, and he'd show me where all my weed was every time.
Oh, I
He'd
missed
go
that,
over and he'd
Russ.
lay down in front of
Yeah.
it. He'd lay down there, and I go,
Oh, that's
there's not any in
hilarious.
there. And Vivian would be, oh yeah, you always run out, so I put some in different places, so when you run out, I can give you some. And I thought, oh, well, he just busted
just found it. Would this dog do anything? It just would like smell it and stare at it, basically.
No, he would lay down, kind of like
yeah.
splooching or
Just
something.
like plank out. Yeah.
Yeah, he would be like a sit that just goes down, and he'd stare right at it. Just
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
yeah.
So you never lose weed with a dog like that.
I just borrowed my neighbor's dog. But anyway, I figured going back to the Border Patrol guy, I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
His wife was talking to Vivian one time, and I guess she'd heard all the rumors,
Yeah.
you know. And Vivian says, do you guys like shiitake?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, we heard. She goes, well, come on, and we'll pick you a bag.
Yeah.
So we go out there, and she takes her, Vivian took her in there, and
Into the grow container.
and the way it was set up, the first room was all substrate bags. 3,000 or 4,000 at a time, I think is all it'd hold, but
Yeah.
I didn't need any heat.
Right.
Even with it underground,
Oh, they produce
the
so much fucking
substrates
heat.
produced enough to keep the building, that part of it, warm. The second half I didn't insulate, so it was in ground contact.
Yeah.
And that's where the fruiting room was.
Yep.
And so she went in there, and we had a really good fruit. It's probably one of the ones I took pictures of, you know. Nobody takes pictures of their shitty ones. You know,
No,
I got a block with one mushroom. I'm going to post it. You know? No.
Some people do, and then they're like, "Why did I do that?"
Why did I post that? Yeah, wait till you got a fucking killer
blown
one,
out
you know?
oysters
Yeah,
are very
this is like
popular.
all of mine look. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a really good flush that time.
Yeah.
One of Holiday's strains. I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't Shiitake 75. It was a smaller one that made lots of mushrooms.
Yep.
So the blocks were just covered.
Sure.
And so she went in there with a paper bag and cut them. And the girl, she's looking all around, you know, like
Trying to find
there's
something.
no marijuana in here.
Right. Jesus, man.
So we didn't,
Snitches.
convert that back over till legalization, got a license and
Right.
stuff, and then set it up for it. But it was
Yeah.
perfect for that.
Oh yeah,
Because
man.
the being in ground contact, it was total geothermal. I
Yeah.
used no heat in the winter, even at 30 below.
I just loved that it had these like PVC chimney effects, or I don't. Was it PVC? That you
No,
had?
those were
They were like
10-inch iron pipe going up. I bought it from it was it was 10-inch well casing, and I don't know how I got them up there and got them in place by myself too. I mean, it took me days because I had to get them up, and Vivian wasn't really sick yet at that point, but she's
Yeah.
not strong enough to hold that iron pipe. So I was scared to have her hold it because I was trying to get it at least close to being plumb.
Yeah,
You know, with the
yeah.
level, don't have to be right, but get close to being plumb so I can get like a 1-inch bead on it, and then I
Yeah.
can whack it with my sledgehammer until it's perfect. You know what to do.
Oh yeah.
You know, you spot weld it, knock it into position, and then weld it all the way around.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. Before we buried it, I knew how deep I wanted it because I wanted the surface to look just like it did before we put it in.
Right.
And so I measured, and I saw I need like 5 feet pipe. So
Yep.
I had a 5-foot piece. I was able to hold that and built a flange and welded it right to the top of the container.
Yeah.
Then we buried it and filled around them, and after we filled, the pipes were just,
Just
like
flush.
6 inches above the ground. Not
Oh,
flush,
okay,
I didn't
they're
want dirt
just
going down,
above.
but just a little above.
Okay. All right.
And then we got the pipe on top of it,
Yep.
ground bevels with my grinder and all that, got it on top, but it was just so dangerous.
Yeah.
I put a ring around it and put a whole bunch of old 2x4s I had, real hillbilly, had a like little teepee, stuck, and I'm like, it's just gonna fall
God,
on me,
oh
when I start to run a bead, because it'd be hard to jump out from under it. you
Oh
know?
Jesus.
It's like a
Yeah, and you would think it
mousetrap.
would just like take some of the container in the hillside and just like.
Well, but it wasn't welded yet. see?
Right,
Yeah, it's
right.
just sitting
Just
there,
sitting there.
And I had to get that first 1-inch bead so I could then
Yeah.
put my level and get it plumb all the way around.
That's my favorite, most precarious David Mann-ish moment, like the old Easerizer magazine where The like David Mann would paint these like extravagant like
Easy
Rider
Rider.
things.
Yeah. I'm thinking Dave Mann. I know that name. I know that name. Yeah.
Yeah, but he would like, you know, the pinnacle moment where like the guy's trying to like set the tank on the like frame, but then it all starts to fall and he's like, and he's trying to catch it.
He's right at that moment. Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Oh, that's a
but
great
he did
one.
have some good ones.
He did, but it's the same precarious thing that everybody who's building stuff, you know, or fabricating things gets into. They're like, this is not good. You know, like I'm gonna fucking kill myself or somebody else.
Or you film a whole scene and then realize you forgot to turn the light on before you filmed it. I was like, oh shit, man.
Oh, dude, it's amazing to have gotten those DVDs from you, and just the amount of people who are like, they'll like scan my bookshelf and be like, what is that? Because everybody's eyes goes to mushrooms, you know? And it's great. Nobody has fucking DVDs anymore. Nobody's got a
I got about 4 cases of DVDs.
Yeah, right.
I ran out and I went ahead and got another small batch.
Yeah.
But by then, just about everybody was getting it online. And
it's
the other day, Sasha asked me, you know, do you have a DVD player?
Yeah.
She wanted to watch a movie that was on DVD, and I got to thinking,
fuck no.
Well, no, my last computer had one built in, but this one doesn't.
Now none of them have disk drives. It's like an extra thing they don't want to deal with, you know.
Well, they got, they've got solid state drives.
Right.
They're way faster.
No, I meant like DVD.
Oh,
like,
DVD. Yeah, they're not in the
can't
new
like
ones.
feed them in.
I don't even know if you can order them.
Fuck no, I don't. Maybe an external one or something.
That's
but
probably what you'd have to do.
Yeah.
So you can play antique media.
Right.
What was state of the art in 2007?
Yeah, it's true, man. No, but you're talking about this agar pouring video, and this one guy, I think he probably watches these, and he wants a consultation based upon like doing things other than liquid culture, because that's become so prominent now. And I'm like, just agar to fucking grain, man.
I hate liquid culture.
Right there. You said it. Yeah, so I literally gave him the link to like your downloads, and I was like, I can't, like, just fucking watch these before we talk about this. You know, I was like, you can't, like,
man,
just
I bought a flask and with a little magnetic thing in the stir and the whole 9 yards, and stuffed polyfill in the top, and
oh, fuck that, dude.
And it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you can't see the contamination if it's there.
No, you have no idea.
But if you've got a plate, you definitely can see the contamination.
And you can analyze it under a fucking microscope. You can see bacterial clamps. You could actually like go in from a biological perspective and be like, this doesn't look right, you know?
You got to be careful. I mean, you can look at it with a zoom microscope.
Right, yeah.
But you're not going to take slides of a whole plate. But really, when you look at a plate, you'll eyeball if it's got... so if there's something unholy, you know what your mycelium looks like, you know. And I had to get used to shiitake because it looks like cobweb mold almost, you know. I was like, am I growing the right thing here? You know?
Dude, it's such a weird one, right? It's that and lion's mane have very particular looks, but, you know, so does like, we were talking about holidays, cordyceps. Like, cordyceps are so weird. You know, and watching those grow through different growing patterns on different grains and media is like wild, you know. They perform this weird, like, exhaustive formulation of exudate, you know, this like secondary metabolite, and then like it'll turn orange and go back into the block of substrate before pins come out. You know, it's this like weird, like, breathing exercise for this mushroom, depending upon the type of grain and what's happening in it. But there's some cool ones out there. And they're fascinating on dishes. So in a liquid form, it's just fucking boring.
Yeah.
It's like not
Vivian found a Cordyceps militaris on one of our hikes.
Oh, up there, yeah?
Yeah, it was over in the Cascade Mountains.
Oh, wow.
Where we were looking across today. Yeah. And, man, I went into full mushroom mode. You know, I was like, oh, we got to get that. We got to clone it, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything sanitary at all.
No,
you know, I had my Leatherman tool here. I'm going to get it. So I dug down until I found the beetle.
Yep.
You know, and then I dug out a chunk and we got it into a baggie. And got it home. And I said, okay, now we'll start taking care of it. But I just either didn't know what it was supposed to look like. That may be what happened, or I was really growing crap because I threw it out. I was like, what should I isolate out of this? Because I had never grown a cordyceps, and I had a fresh fruiting body, but I tried using the standard terret. Of course, it's little, you know,
Right.
but I tried scraping something and getting it on, you know, several different dishes, but never got anything that to me looked like it was what I
An
wanted.
actual culture.
Yeah.
Dude, and they're strange. I'm just figuring this stuff out because people have been asking, but like, you know, they stand up. The top pad with a bunch of holes in it is the actual fruit body. The stem looking thing is not the stem. It's just aerial mycelium.
Really?
So yeah, it's very strange. So I've been learning more and more about this because
But is that
everybody's excited.
clonable? Because I think
it
I
is
don't
and it
think I
isn't.
took it. I might have taken it. I
Yeah.
usually would try to find the fleshiest spot, so I don't
Right.
remember. But
Yeah, and it's probably towards the top, and it is clonable, but Militaris in particular is a little more stable. But it's for Cordyceps in general, they're the most fickle bastards. Like, you always have to cross them, you always have to come up with new phenotypes, or you go to Japan and you get like a really nice phenotype that's been, like, you know, demonstrated to perform over a long period of time. Because otherwise you're just chasing.
but do they want to let those go?
No, you have to get them from them. You know, you have to go find a Cordy and like do the whole thing.
Oh, they'll pick one there.
Yeah, and or you know, buy them, you know, from overseas and hope they're fresh, or like find somebody who got one. There's a lot of people
That's right.
traveling the world now, and
I remember something about real high elevation people,
right.
like way above 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
And they sell cordyceps. Is it Burma?
It's
or-
the Himalayan plateau is where like Holiday and all these people were going initially,
Okay.
and that's where Cordyceps sinensis was growing on the caterpillars, and that became like the gold standard for Cordy's until Militaris, which is prevalent everywhere in the States, became something that you could actually cultivate a lot easier, because senescence just does not grow unless you
I
have a
don't know that
living
it's
host.
prevalent everywhere, but
No,
there
no,
may
no.
be one. I've only
out
seen
there.
one in the wild, and I spend,
Yeah,
you know, I've spent at least a year or two of my
Yeah.
life in the woods,
yeah.
you know, and I always have my eyes open,
Yep.
checking things out.
Yeah, you caught those inky caps before anybody else
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, but
Did you
how
get
many
pictures of
how many
those?
rocks did I trip over? And have you noticed hiking boots? Did you notice that on the ones you were wearing? They've got a great big rubber ball on the toe
Oh yeah.
for protection, for exactly that.
You're
for
just-
when you hit a stump.
Oh,
you
my
know?
fucked up knee just stopped lifting up on this side, so I just kept kicking shit. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I'm battered, man. I think you're right. I just need to hike more mountains.
It's hard work. You'll be sore tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I am
know?
anticipating it.
But what we do is I take my dogs every other day because
Yeah.
they're getting old too. And
Yeah.
if we do a couple of the walks we get, there's an interurban walk up along the Green River, and then there's a
Yeah.
trail in Milton, and then I told you about the BPA trail, Federal Way.
Yeah.
And then there's a trail down to that beach we went to,
Yeah.
Dash Point Beach.
Yeah.
There's some
Oh,
hiking
it's
trails
so
around
beautiful there.
There's hiking trails there, but I can't take my dogs in the summer
Yeah.
because the vegetation grows in on the trail.
Yeah.
So it's just like a narrow one-lane trail. And when we meet people with other dogs,
There's
they
no
have
way
to
around.
intermingle. And when I've got all three of mine
They're
on
massive
leash,
fucking dogs.
well, they're
dude.
yeah, but still, any dog on leash is going to be protective of its person. When they're off leash, not so much.
Yeah, they don't really care.
But I can only take one dog off leash because I can't let them pack up.
Right.
But if I have all three of mine and there's somebody approaching with a dog,
Yeah.
I got to get completely off the trail or make them back up or something because it's too dangerous. And some of them are like, "Oh no, it's okay."
And you're like,
I'm like, "No, it
it's
is not okay.
Yeah.
You don't bring your dog towards us. Wait until we're out of the way. They will bite your dog.
Yeah.
You know, you got to
Yeah.
give us room. They're on leash. Give us room.
Yeah.
Don't come into our space." But those trails are so narrow, you don't see people till you're almost on them.
Yeah.
So I like them in the winter.
Yeah.
When the blackberries die back and they cut everything down, you know, they'll trim the trail back 6 feet, 7 feet wide. Then
And then
there's
it's
no
actually
problem.
good.
Yeah,
That's
you got room
awesome,
to
man.
pass.
Yeah.
You know, I just make their leashes short, and the other people makes theirs short, and we just pass. Do it all the time on the other trails. But
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Oh, man, I love those dogs. So you're going to wait for these ones to retire themselves of this amazing life that you've given them, and then you're going to travel around, and then a puppy.
they're 11 years old, and I love them to death. But I take them. When we get back to the house today, they're gonna howl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, they
They're
get
pissed
so
they're leaving.
excited when, nah, well,
They're sad.
I guarantee you they're still sitting in the window. Rex will be. Rex will be sitting in the front window looking down the street because he can see to where I turn, and he's watching for the motorcycle to come back. He's waiting. Yeah. He'll wait there all day. He'll wait there till we get back.
Let's go hang out with him. This is good. You feel good about this? I was like, let's go hang out with him. Do you feel good about this? You want to say something else or end it out with anything in particular? You've articulated this so many times that I think you said a few times this very articulate, like 3-word, like this is what it was sort of thing.
Yeah,
naming names
it's
is
corruption.
hard.
It's official corruption, and I will swear to that in a court of law.
Yeah.
And I'll look right at Prosecutor Catherine Burt and swear to what she did. She suborned perjury to defeat a property owner out of his property just to help somebody who's politically connected. Now that's corruption. You don't have another word for that. 3 county commissioners violated the oath of their office. One of them I knew, Brad Miller. I served on the conservation district in Ferry County. That was an elected position. I think that might have pissed off some of the locals. But Brad Miller used to come to our meetings. He knew who I was. He'd come out to our mushroom farm.
Yeah.
Okay, and he rode a Harley. All right, we had all these things in common. He's county commissioner, also an ex-state trooper. Okay, but he didn't even give me a phone call. He met with these people 2 weeks in a row, and then signed the thing taking my property without so much. And I'm local. I'm right there.
Yeah.
He could have said, "Hey, Mark, you want to come down here?" No.
Yeah.
No due process. None whatsoever. And then when I tried to get due process, they lied.
Yeah.
You know, and it's perjury because it was signed under penalty of perjury. It was an affidavit by the tax assessor. Now you can't get more official corruption than that. And then, like I say, deleting a parcel of land and just deleting it, just making it go away.
Yeah.
But they did. And the Court of Appeals winked at it, and the Supreme Court denied review. So if there's anything in closing, people can write letters.
Yeah.
I think if Chief Justice Gonzalez or Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice can ask the local prosecutors to see me. Okay, and it's the same thing as the FBI. If I lie to a federal prosecutor, it's a felony. And I will sit down and repeat what I've said here.
Those are the 2 people to get the attention.
Yeah. If somebody wants to write letters, Merrick Garland or the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Eastern Washington, ask the Eastern District prosecutors. I don't know their name. They're online. Just search DOJ, and there's an Eastern District and a Western District.
Yeah.
The Western District would be more convenient to talk to.
Yeah.
They don't have to travel to me or me to them. But I'll talk to the prosecutors. But probably the best thing, I don't think Chief Justice Gonzalez really knew what had happened.
Yeah.
I don't think he understood the gravity of the criminal actions that were taken. So I say that in his credit. He didn't explain why he denied review. He just said, we've denied review. So,
yeah, well, and you know how many things come across an individual's desk is one thing, but making it known that, he probably didn't look at it with any sort of focused attention or eyes is probably what a lot of letters would do. And be like, fuck, fine, okay, I'll look at this,
10,000 letters would get anybody's attention.
I'd say so. And if there's 100, and no, it's 250,000 people are on the Shroomery Facebook page. Like, the fuck,
Just write your letters professional and polite and courteous and 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah.
If you write them a book, they're not going to read it. I've learned that. Don't write a full page or 2 pages. Write 1 paragraph. Say Marc R. Keith versus Ferry County. Yeah. Please look into it. He was cheated out of his home, and I'm elderly. We spent 30 years making mortgage payments. We didn't come to have a paid-for house just overnight because somebody gave it to us. We paid mortgage payments,
Right.
and then had it all stolen. And think about work in construction and how it tears up your knees and everything else all those years to make house payments and pay taxes.
Yeah.
And then when it's finally got a place paid for, yeah, just to help a criminal. To help a criminal who forged a signature from one document onto another to make it look like my property had actually been made a county road in 1992. Yeah. So they passed a resolution saying that's been a county road since 1992. He went straight across the street to the title agent, sold the house, got a VA loan to pay him for it, and the guy had his money in 30 days and left town, went to Billings, Montana. Who knows how many people he's cheated out of their houses there.
Right. Hopefully somebody like Chief Gonzalez can find out.
Or hopefully somebody powerful in the Jehovah's Witnesses will say, this is our people doing this?
Right.
And it's happened twice. The only 2 times I had property stolen, and both times it was Jehovah's Witnesses. There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
They can fix it. Okay? They can pay me for my property.
Yeah.
Okay? Maybe they can shame Woodsky into selling his house and giving me the money.
Right.
Okay? But that doesn't pay for millions of dollars of lost income from my cannabis business.
Yeah.
I was putting out 27% test results back 7 years ago, and they're just now, in the last year or so, getting pot
Up to
that's
that.
quality. Yeah, and I had it then. And it was from selective breeding.
Yeah.
Essentially the same as in mushroom with strain isolation. I was doing it with seeds.
Right.
But every time I would get a better phenotype, that would become the mother plant, grow a shit ton of males, harvest the pollen, get the seeds, plant every one of them, get them tested, get a little bit better pheno. And I'd been doing that because Vivian, with cancer, I had a medical card, or a designated provider, they called it. But it gave me access to labs, so I upped my strain quality. You know? And then anytime there was something good that was actually on the market and available, you know, like Girl Scout cookies and wedding cake and them, I would buy it and then incorporate some of their males
into that breeding program.
Into the breeding program, like with my chocolate tie or my orange or whatever I had. And I would bring, you know, other things into it. So 90% of the time it was worse than what I had, you know. I would try to improve it, and most of them weren't quite as good because I'd have my very best pheno, my very best mother plant. So to find one that was better than her took a lot of pollen and a lot of luck, because you can't plant 10,000 seeds and do 10,000 tests.
Crosses, no.
Yeah, it's like $300 to run a test.
Yeah, just to know.
And you really need the labs to get to the nitty gritty, because they'll tell you exactly what your terpenes are.
Oh yeah.
CBD, CBG, the others.
There's like very clear tests for all that stuff.
Yeah. And so I looked at, you know, all of that because I wanted flavor and potency.
Yeah.
But they took it.
Yeah.
You know. And the other guy I know wasn't involved. He's already gone out of business. When prices went down, he was growing outdoors, and so he was running 16%, and he was having to sell it for like a nickel a gram to make liquid. He goes, man, I'm growing this stuff like weeds out in the back 40, you know, and I still can't make any money. It costs me more to chop it down than I get.
Yep.
You know, it's not worth it.
No, it's changed so much now. I mean, you were in it in a very particular time and place, and that was where every move was made, and it's all the same now in terms of like how people approach it, but it's the bottom line of it has dropped so far. Same thing with psychedelics.
Well, the
and
top
same thing
of
with
the
everything
market
else.
is still bringing in just about what I was getting.
Yep.
I finally had to drop. They pressured me down to 420 a gram.
Wow.
And I went down from 5 to that.
Yep.
But I wouldn't come down from 420.
Yeah.
I mean, every 6 months, metal halides, you got to replace them.
Yeah.
And the LEDs, or at least the LEDs they had then, suck.
It's still farming, right? It's crazy.
It is, but the sun is not as good as the lights.
True.
For this.
Yeah.
You know, for putting out the maximum quality, you can do better under lights.
Yeah,
you can control your conditions better.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is keeping warm temperatures at night.
Right.
Growers, don't let it get cold at night. That makes it harsh, and your buds don't get as tight. Try to keep it above 70 at night.
Yeah, hermaphrodites indoors like that, man.
Well, if you got a strain that grows Hermes, just burn it.
Yeah.
Just burn it, because that's
gone.
genetics.
Right.
Just genetics. So if you've got one, don't try to save it. Just don't plant that again.
Right. Call it good.
Breed it out.
Yep.
Breed it out by getting rid of it, and then get some that don't make Hermes. Because I've tried. They say shock them and it makes them better and stuff. It doesn't.
Pinch projects and the whole 9 yards.
I tried all those things to see under controlled circumstances. So don't shock them. Keep them warm.
I wonder
Humid in the
how
day.
many mushroom cultivators grow weed. I have no idea.
Probably a lot.
Probably.
Because there's something weird about mushroom people.
Yeah.
Right?
Weird about weed.
We are. Weed's a little bit more mainstream, I think.
It is. Mushrooms are coming in.
Mushroom growers are characters.
Yeah, they are. They're you.
Yeah, they're you and me, you know. We're different than most people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying better.
We wear weird hats. And
definitely uglier.
Right. Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I know. Yosemite Sam over there, man. He's beautiful.
All right, let's go drink a beer.
Let's go.